Good morning. This is the early morning, the 18th of November. For those of you that might be interested, I survived the surgery, and I'm not hurting, which is even better. Here, have a look. You can see that's where the bandages are. This is where they removed the old unit. This is where they put the new unit in. Anyway, it's video time. Clip put up by Times Radio, titled, Trump Cornered Over Epstein Files. Scott Lucas analyzes his hoodwink backflip. Let's see what Scott Lucas has to say. This clip plays for just under 24 minutes. I might do this in two parts because for whatever reason, it keeps crashing when I try to download it. I'd rather lose 12 minutes than 24 minutes. So let's have a listen.
A veto-proof majority or not, there was going to be more than a handful of Republicans who were going to defy Trump. And the thing about a bully is, once people start to defy you the first time, they might defy you the second time, the third time, the fourth time, because your game has been exposed, and he just doesn't want to risk that right now.
The Trump Report with Times Radio.
Professor Scott Lucas from the Clinton Institute at the University College Dublin, thank you so much for joining the Trump Report today.
Very good afternoon, Maddie.
You and I spoke last week, but there is so much that has happened in the last few days when it comes to this Epstein drama for Donald Trump, and we have to keep going. We have to follow it along because our audience obviously love to hear about what you have to say in your analysis of it all. So I want to start off with, of course, the big story being Donald Trump surprised everyone by releasing a statement where he backed House members voting for the DOJ to release these Epstein files. He said it's time to move on. He said House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetuated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party. So last week, Scott, late last week, we saw Thomas Massie say that he was predicting a snowball amount of Republicans set to come forward and vote in the final hour of releasing these Epstein files. That will take place tomorrow. But do you believe that this is the reason as to why Donald Trump has made this backflip?
Are you drinking too much water?
I believe he's made the backflips because they redacted pretty much everything. Remember, they had 1,000 FBI agents working on it. Let's go back. Get rid of the ad.
There you go. Podcast done. Right? Geez, this is the easiest question that you're going to give me all day, Maddie. Look, the White House, had this big lobbying effort last week that we mentioned, where they pulled in the 4 Republicans who were going to join the Democrats in this discharge petition, which would demand the vote. And we talked about how, the best known of those 4 is Marjorie Taylor Greene. But in fact, they lobbied the 2 other women, Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace. And neither Mace nor Boebert would back down, even though they are diehard Trumpists. And at that point, what happened here is that a lot of Republicans who might have wanted the files released, they didn't want to be the 218th signature on that petition. They didn't want to be the tipping point signature. And of course, that was the Democratic representative, Adelita Grijalva, who was finally sworn in by, Mike Johnson, the House Speaker. Once that happens, these Republicans can come and vote for this motion on Tuesday, and they don't have to be the decisive member that Trump takes aim at. And Massie raised the stakes. So Thomas Massie said not only did he want to get a majority for the release of files, he wanted to get a 2/3 majority. That was his target. Now, 2/3 majority is significant because it's veto proof. Even if Trump wanted to block this, the House could override it. Now, it doesn't mean that, in fact, if there had been a 2/3 majority in the House, that was it, because the Senate still has to vote as well. But it would have been a huge symbolic defeat for Trump on Tuesday if he's still against the release of the files, and you get all these Republicans that are joining the Democrats. So what does he do? He tries to change the narrative here, which is, no, I'm the one for transparency here, and he's going to supplement that by saying it's all the Democrats. It's all the Democrats who are in the files anyway. And we know it's absolutely bogus, because if you honestly believe that, Donald, you would have released the files back in February when Pam Bondi said, we're reviewing them. They're on my desk. And so it's Trump trying to go back on the offense rather than being on the defense. How effective that's going to be the next question we need to pick up on as this moves forward to the vote.
Scott, you mentioned this veto-proof amount of Republicans, and so late last week we only had 4 Republicans out of these 218 that were voting in favour tomorrow on Tuesday of releasing these, of voting in favour of the discharge petition. So in order to get 2/3 majority of both the House, they would need around 290 votes in the House, and then they would need 67 votes in the Senate. So, I mean, do you think that Thomas Massie will get this amount of votes? He said he's got close to 100 Republicans now, which is obviously a stark contrast to the 4 that he had, last Thursday. So do you think we'll get there?
Coincidentally, or far from coincidentally, and I think I mentioned this last week, David Schuster, one of the top journalists in Washington, has been saying for a couple of weeks that there were 100 Republicans that were ready to vote for this. Now, that may be because Thomas Massie told David Schuster that. We don't know that for sure. But yeah, that number of 100 was floating around. And quite clearly, if you get 100 Republicans joining the 214 Democrats, they are now well above that 290, which is the 2/3 mark that Massie's getting. So I think equally significant was that there were some senior Republicans in the Senate who were beginning to move their position. They had said that the release of the files wasn't necessary, and now they were starting to say, we'll have to look at this, we'll have to consider this. I think John Cronin was one of them, who's one of the top Republican senators. So Trump was facing losing face in the Senate as well. I think it's not a question of whether they had a veto-proof majority or not. There was going to be more than a handful of Republicans who were going to defy Trump. And the thing about a bully is, once people start to defy you the first time, they might defy you the second time, the third time, the fourth time, because your game has been exposed, and he just doesn't want to risk that right now.
So Thomas Massie was asked about this reversal from Donald Trump. He said that this might be a big smoke screen, these investigations, to open a bunch of them as a last-ditch effort to prevent the release of the Epstein files. So this, coupled with a tweet that went quite viral from Don Winslow, he basically numbered the situation. He said, number 1, Trump was told that he was going to lose the House vote. Number 2, Trump comes out and says Republicans should all vote yes after a full year of trying to block everything. Number 3, but he set a new investigation at the Justice Department. Number 4, Justice Department comes out and says we can't release due to a new investigation. Number 5, Trump says, well, it's not my fault. I told them to vote yes. Number 6, no, Trump never told the Justice Department to release everything without any further delays and stop phony investigation. This product.
Another ad just popped up. I'll get rid of it.
Into these political enemies. So is this a very calculated move, Scott, from Donald Trump to do this reversal? There's more in this.
Oh, you can't rule it out, because technically you're right. If Pam Bondi, Trump's political sidekick and the Attorney General, if she says, well, we've got a live investigation which is going on with possible prosecutions and Trump has asked her to prosecute Bill Clinton. He's asked her to prosecute the former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers. And Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn co-founder and a prominent donor to the Democrats. So if Bondi says, well, we're investigating these 3 people, so we need to keep the files and see if they're named in them. So this is an active investigation. Yeah, that's plausible. But the thing is, you've just outlined how people know that might be the next move, which means that if Trump does this, people are going to say, oh, you're just stalling again. You're just delaying. So I would think it would be an extremely risky move for Trump to do this. It would, because even his supporters, this is the key, even his supporters are onto him over this one. They're not buying all the sorry, I need to make sure I don't use an expletive here. They're not buying all the rubbish. They're not buying all the diversions. They're saying we want to see the files, and I don't think they'll buy that diversion either.
But Scott, a lot of, including Thomas Massey, a lot of Republicans, and including Marjorie Taylor Greene, have come out saying, look, I don't even think that Donald Trump has done anything wrong. I'm not saying that these files would indicate that he's doing anything wrong personally, that his past would bring up something incriminatory. All I'm saying is what their argument is, that they believe he is protecting rich, powerful men who broke the law.
And that is a very powerful argument and a very important argument. I know we're focused on Trump, but the fact here is that we now are in 2025 and beyond Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm trying to think of any other person who has been accountable.
No.
On the American side. You can say on the British side that there have been people who've been accountable in a political sense. You know, Andrew, formerly known as Prince, and Peter Mandelson, the former UK ambassador of the US. But in the US, nobody else has taken even, at least publicly, a reputational hit. Now, some men have taken hits amongst the elites who know that they are there, but they haven't been outed publicly. So I think that's a pretty powerful argument. I don't agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on about 99% of what she says. In fact, I think she's a conspiracy theorist. But, you know, even a blind squirrel can find an acorn once in a while. And there is a legitimate issue here, which is young girls were trafficked, young girls were abused, young girls were raped, and who were the people who did this? But I will get back to Trump for just a minute. The issue with Trump is not that Trump is complicit in Epstein's pedophilia, you know, and there's no evidence that says that he's complicit. The issue with Trump here is that Trump was closer to Epstein than he has let on, and that he might have known of the pedophilia. And why do I say that? If we go to the most recent emails, Epstein's email, unless he's lying, when he writes Ghislaine Maxwell, places Trump in his apartment. Other emails place Trump in his house. When he's in his apartment, Trump is alongside at least one victim of Jeffrey Epstein, whether or not he knew she was a victim, Virginia Jeffrey. At that point, you have to say, how much did Donald Trump know about what Jeffrey Epstein is getting up to?
I'm really amazed that Scott Lucas just said what he said. I mean, I'm just amazed. Maybe Scott Lucas needs to tune in to Kudaman 415708 or Gabor Zolna on YouTube. How could Trump not be complicit? I mean, he was with one of those girls for a long time. I just did a video where one of the girls said she was 13 when he raped her. How could he say that? This will be part one. Now, just so you understand, I don't expect people to even hear what I just said, because they're probably just going to watch the link, which is fine. But I'm just amazed that he said what he did. Let me know what you think. You sure as hell know what I think. More importantly, you know why I think what I think. Just so you also know, the reason that I play this entire video isn't for you, because I know you're probably just going to go to the link. I want to know what's in it. Because all of these pieces are pieces of a puzzle. And you can't put the puzzle together unless you have all the pieces. That's one of the reasons I can do what I can do. I've done this for almost 14 years, every day, 7 days a week. I don't take any time off. I don't go on vacation. Folks, pass it along, and thanks for listening.